Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark from the United States.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Mark from the States. How are we doing today? I'm doing fantastic. I hope you are as well. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out today. I'm excited. Chris Green, history chap. We all love him. He is awesome. Do me a favor, go over to his channel. Link below to this video that we're going to watch and to his channel. Another link will take you right there. I did all the work. Just click on the link. Easy, and go support him. I know a lot of people already do, but he is fantastic. And I encourage you to sign up to his mailing list and his club. You get emails every week talking about history, talking about upcoming things that he's going to be doing, and they're personalized to you. It's not, to whom it may concern, that sort of thing. It's great. He's just an awesome human. So please get over there and help him get to his channel and support him. This video has come requested by many of you, and I've had it on the list, and I've just been trying to do some other videos that had been on the list for a while. Here's the thing with the list. I'm hitting some of the requests, and then I'm also doing some other videos that come my way that I'm interested in as well, and I think that you would be interested in also. But this one definitely requested by a handful or more for sure. So I'm excited to see this. This is the African Queen, true World War I behind the film. So, the drill, right? You come sit on this big fake couch. I got to rewind it here for whatever reason it wasn't rewound. Come sit on this big fake couch with me. Huh? You guys are amazing. Wonderful, wonderful people that you are. And let's learn the true story behind the African Queen, shall we? Let's do it.
Hi, I'm Chris Green, the history chap, telling the fascinating, forgotten, and sometimes unfashionable stories from history that we didn't learn about at school.
Unfashionable.
The African Queen was a 1951 adventure film.
I have seen this movie a long time ago with my father. I was young, really young. I need to see it again. It's a classic. Yes, we can all agree it's a classic. But there's a lot of it I don't remember. Shocker. But I was really young and I did watch it with my father. So I think after this video, it's probably really going to make me want to watch this again for sure.
Starring Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn. Based upon a novel by the same name, written in the 1930s by C.S. Forester, who's more famous as the author of the Horatio Hornblower series.
Ah, yes.
It's set in German East Africa,
Did not know
Tanzania, during the First World War. And it tells the story of how a tiny civilian launch takes on and sinks a German warship that's patrolling an inland lake. It's a great action film with tremendous acting. In fact, Bogart received Best Actor award for this film at the Oscars. But did you know that the African Queen is actually based upon real events in World War I? Because in late 1915, early 1916, the Royal Navy took on the German Navy on a lake deep inside Africa.
Really?
And this is the story of that battle for Lake Tanganyika. A bizarre little sideshow led by an equally bizarre British commander in a war that around the world was costing millions of lives. What many people forget is that when the First World War broke out, Germany possessed several colonies in Africa, all of which saw some form of military action. The longest and most bitter campaign was fought in German East Africa, modern-day Tanzania. Here, Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck, with an army of 3,000 Germans and 11,000 local Africans, held off over 300,000 Allied troops for the whole war. It was one of the greatest guerrilla campaigns of all time and earned him the nickname the Lion of Africa. Now, I'll be telling the story about this campaign very soon, so please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss it.
Please.
From the outset of the war, Lake Tanganyika was set to be a key battleground. At 420 miles long and about 30 miles wide, the lake formed the western boundary of German East Africa. Across the lake were her enemies, the Belgians in the Congo and the British in northern Rhodesia, now Zambia. It was both a formidable barrier to the Allies, but also their Achilles heel. They would be forced to advance around the lake, which left their supply routes vulnerable to counterattacks if the Germans chose to raid across the water. And that is exactly what the Germans intended. A 130-strong naval detachment was sent to Lake Tanganyika. Under the command of Captain Gustav Zimmer, they commandeered the 60-ton Hedwig von Wissmann and a 38-ton tug, the Kingani, and armed them with light guns. From Zimmer's HQ at Kigoma, they then set out to clear the lake of Allied ships. By the end of 1914, they'd sunk a Belgian vessel and 2 British ships, and had achieved supremacy on the lake.
This is nothing I remember. It's I don't even, I am lost for words here. I'm gonna find out, I'm sure, if most of the vessels were just regular ships that were on the lake that had been converted, or did they build something specifically to use there? Gosh. Yeah, I don't remember the movie at all. Now, of course, the movie was based on this, not so much true story, obviously, but yeah, interesting.
This now enabled them to intercept Belgian caravans travelling along the western shore, and even launched an attack on the British settlement at Abercorn, Mabala, in northern Rhodesia. In April 1915, big game hunter and Boer War veteran John Lee travelled to London with some alarming news. He reported that a huge German ship was being transported in 5,000 cases from the coast to Lake Tanganyika, where it will be assembled.
I was wondering, so there's no, I mean, it's a lake, but there's no way, like, waterway to get there. You know, no offshoot river or anything like that. So they need to literally take the ship apart, box it up, drive it there, or by train, however they got it there, and then reassemble it. That is crazy.
You've got to hand it to the Germans, haven't you?
Right?
220 feet in length, displacing 1,500 tons, and armed with guns from the cruiser Königsberg. The Gürzen would blast any Allied ship out of the water.
Yeah, especially if they're
Furthermore, her guns could
commandeered
hit troops
fishing
anywhere in the
vessels.
vicinity of the lake. And even more worrying was that the Gürzen had the capacity to transport 800 to 900 German troops across the lake in one go. This could put any Allied advance into the German colony from the west in jeopardy.
Oh, yeah.
The Gürzen could ferry hundreds of German troops behind the Allied lines to conduct a counterattack or cut them off. Lee urged the Admiralty to act before the Gürzen made the German position on the lake unassailable. The naval chiefs, however, were in the thick of the Dardanelles campaign and told Lee they really didn't have the resources to counter this threat in far-off Africa. John Lee came up with a solution that was both modest and outrageous. He proposed transporting 2 small, fast motor launches to the lake. Their speed would enable them to conduct hit-and-run raids on the Germans, and even able to outrun the Gürzen.
This is kind of what I was thinking.
These small vessels
could
be
there.
transported in one piece. The Admiralty agreed to his plan and commandeered 2 40-foot motor launches, which they armed with 3-pound guns in the fore and a Maxim machine gun aft. As Lee was not a naval man, and this was now a naval operation, the Royal Navy now looked for a suitable officer to command this expedition. With the war in full swing, most officers were already engaged on active duties. Except one. Lieutenant Commander Geoffrey Basil Spicer Simpson. The 39-year-old Spicer Simpson had had an undistinguished naval career up to this point. In his 25-year naval career, he'd gone AWOL, rammed another vessel, and at the beginning of the war, lost a coastal defence ship off Ramsgate as he looked on from the shore whilst hosting a dinner party.
Yeah, not
By
good.
1915, he was the oldest lieutenant commander in the Royal Navy and assigned to shore duties, which you might not find too surprising.
That's like
So-
the equivalent of a desk job, right? I assume if you're a commander and you're now just assigned to shore duties. That's like you're just going to be working behind a desk. Yeah, not good. Surprised that he was still in the Navy after all that. Oh man, but I mean, I'm glad they kept him in the Royal Navy. I mean, just for the name alone, right? That's wild. I was saying I imagine that this would have been the preferred ship on the lake, but this is before the Germans decide, hey, let's Lego a heavy ship, large ship, and build it, put it together, and that way we can wipe everybody out. But that's still kind of, especially at that time, 1915. It's just the logistics of it all. It must have been just insane.
Whilst their lordships at the Admiralty were loath to put him in charge of any large warship, they were more than relaxed about him commanding 2 motor launches out in Africa. Spicer Simpson immediately showed his slightly idiosyncratic tendencies when he suggested that the 2 vessels should be named Cat and Dog.
Oh, God.
The Admiralty were aghast. There was no way that 2 of His Majesty's ships, even these very tiny ones, could be called HMS Cat and HMS Dog.
I love it.
They told him to come up with something a bit better. The Lieutenant Commander, who was fluent in French as well as German, came back with the alternatives of Mimi and Tutu. Their lordships accepted these far more sensible and slightly exotic sounding names. But Spicer Simpson had the last laugh. The names translated into the French meow and bow wow.
Oh my
And with the names
gosh.
accepted, Mimi, Tutu and their curious commander set out on a 10,000-mile journey to fight a naval battle on a lake in the middle of Africa. Travelling by ship from England to Cape Town, they then embarked on a 2,000-mile train journey to the Belgian Congo.
Jeez.
And this was where the real fun began, because the next stage involved a 120-mile journey overland, the boats being pulled by 2 steam tractors, dozens of oxen, and hundreds of African porters.
Logistics.
The steam tractors proved far too heavy for the wooden bridges that they were travelling over. Time and time again, the bridges collapsed, and on one occasion, one of the huge engines ended up on its side in the bed of a stream. It took all the ingenuity and experience of a Rhodesian railway engineer turned rancher, Lieutenant Paddy Wainwright, to slowly move the tractors forward.
Thank you,
On one
Paddy.
occasion, he had to replenish their boilers by employing over 150 local women to carry water supplies in pots on their heads. He also devised a series of winches to pull the boats, as well as the tractors, up a 6,400-foot mountain range.
Unreal.
The expedition now reached the Luabala River.
Real.
The plan had been to sail the 2 vessels 170 miles along the river towards Lake Tanganyika. However, they found that the Luabala was at its driest level for 6 years. On one day alone, the 2 vessels ran aground 14 times, which not only required a lot of hard work to free them, but also nerves of steel, as the men were working in crocodile-infested waters.
Oh, shit.
Eventually, the 2 smallest vessels in the Royal Navy completed their journey on rafts made from empty oil drums. The expedition became dubbed Simpson's Circus. They finally arrived at the Belgian northern end of Lake Tanganyika on the 26th of October. The 10,000-mile journey had taken nearly 4 months. Spicer Simpson's two boats were launched onto the lake just before Christmas 1915, and within days they were in action. The German naval commander on the lake, Captain Gustav Zimmer, at his base in Kigoma, had been hearing from the local tribes that something was afoot across the lake. And so on the 26th of December, he dispatched one of his vessels, the Kingani, to investigate. The Kingani cruised past Spicer Simpson's base just as the British commander was conducting Sunday prayers for his men. Bringing the religious service to a rapid conclusion, he ordered his crews onto their boats. The captain of the German vessel, Sub-Lieutenant Jung, now faced a dilemma. Whilst his 6-pound gun was far more powerful than Mimi and Tutu's, it only faced forwards. In other words, he would need to turn 180 degrees before he could engage the British vessels.
Oh, no.
Ordering his crew to fire on the British with their rifles, he started to turn the Kingani. But as he started to turn, the two motor launches sped in and opened fire. One of their shells punctured the German below the waterline. Another hit the steering house, killing Jung and 4 of his crew.
Oh boy.
The Kalinga was finished. She struck her colours, and the chief engineer waved surrender with a white handkerchief. The first Allied victory in what is sometimes called the Battle for Lake Tanganyika had taken just 11 minutes. The sound of the battle had brought
impressive.
a crowd of local Africans down to the shoreline who were now watching the spectacle.
That must have been kind of just wild to see in person. Crazy that the gun was fixed. I'm sure that they didn't make that mistake when they were building anymore. They needed it to be able to move. But yeah, definitely put it at a disadvantage to these smaller, faster strike boats here. God, just so wild. See? They said he was crazy, old Basil Spicy Simpson. Spicer Simpson. Great name. Yeah, he was perfect to take Meow and Woof out and dominate. That's great.
Simpson's circus was certainly providing entertainment value.
Oh, yeah.
But at that very moment of victory, disaster almost struck. The Mimi, travelling at almost top speed, ploughed straight into the stricken German vessel.
Uh-oh.
And in case you're wondering, yes, Spicer Simpson was in command. Somehow, the British boat managed to disentangle herself, and the Kalinga was escorted back to the Allied side of the lake. There she was patched up and joined Spicer Simpson's flotilla, where the Maverick commander named her HMS Fifi. It was just over a month before HMS Fifi, Mimi and Tutu would be in action again. On the 9th of February, another German armed vessel, the Hedwig von Wissmann, appeared on the horizon. The Germans had become increasingly concerned as to the fate of the Kalinga, and had dispatched the 66-foot Hedwig under Lieutenant Job Oberrecht on a reconnaissance mission. Imagine 23-year-old Oberrecht's surprise when he saw the Kalinga now sailing towards him, flying the white ensign of the Royal Navy. Even more surprising was that the Kalinga, or should we say HMS Fifi, was now armed with a 12-pounder gun on her bow. On the bridge was Spicer Simpson, now promoted to the rank of commander after his first victory. In his wake came HMS Mimi and HMS Tutu. Eager to notch up another win, Spicer Simpson ordered his 12-pounder to fire on the Hedwig. The shot sailed past Lieutenant Oberrecht, but the force of the recoil stopped HMS Fifi in her tracks. The German seized the opportunity to turn tail and put some distance between himself and the Fifi before another more accurate shot could be fired. As the Fifi floundered in the lake, HMS Mimi raced past to take up the fight. Just as in the last action, the Mimi and the Tutu were hopelessly outgunned, but also as before, they were faster, and the Hedwig, just like the Kalinga, could only fire forwards.
Gosh.
As long as Lieutenant
Huge
Obrecht
mistake.
fled across the lake, they could snap at his heels, firing into his unprotected stern. So he now tried to turn to face the motor launches. They, in turn, desperately tried to evade a shot by trying to stay behind the German. Eventually, after a 30-mile chase, Fifi arrived back on the scene. Firing her second to last shell, she hit the Hedvig's hull and the Germans started to take on water. Then with her very last shell, HMS Fifi hit Hedvig's engine room. The German boat erupted into flames, and as the burning vessel sank beneath the water, 20 German sailors, Europeans and local Africans, leapt into the lake and were captured. Included in their number was Lieutenant Oberrecht. It was just 2 weeks before his 24th birthday.
Wow, so young.
Job Oberrecht would survive the war and end up serving in the Luftwaffe during World War II, where he became a general in charge of a flak regiment. Now the only German ship on the lake was the Gürzen.
Was the Lego
Despite
ship.
having a gun from the cruiser Königsberg mounted on her, Captain Zimmer refused to engage Spicer Simpson's little flotilla. But because of that Königsberg gun, Spicer Simpson also refused to take on the German.
Oh, stalemate.
Effectively, it was a stalemate. But a stalemate was good enough for the Allies. With the Gürzen holed up in Kigoma, German supremacy on the lake had been broken. There'd be no further German attacks into British or Belgian territory. And now the Allies were able to advance into German East Africa without fear of being cut off by enemy troops crossing the lake behind them. The Battle of Lake Tanganyika had been an Allied success. Spicer Simpson was awarded the Distinguished Service Order, DSO. 3 of his officers received Distinguished Service Crosses, whilst 12 of his men received Distinguished Service Medals. It was this battle and Simpson's Circus which inspired C.S. Forrester to write The African Queen in the 1930s, which in itself inspired the 1951 film. Neither the book nor the film were documentaries. The African Queen is an adventure, with some romance, set on a lake during the East Africa campaign. Bogart and Hepburn are civilians who decide to use their small craft to sink a powerful German warship. As you now know, the actions on Lake Tanganyika were conducted by the Royal Navy, not civilians. And the biggest boat that Spicer Simpson sank was the Hedvig, not the mighty Gürzen. Nevertheless, it's a great film, which was actually shot on location in Africa, which is pretty amazing in 1951.
Heck yeah.
2 boats were used as the African Queen, and both of them survive to this day. One can be found in Uganda, and the other has been restored and now provides cruises for tourists around Key West in Florida.
Oh, wow.
Personally, I
know
think
that.
The African Queen is a great story. But the real-life story of Simpson's Circus and the Battle of Lake Tanganyika is almost just as good, isn't it?
It's better.
By the middle of July 1916, with Belgian troops advancing on Kigoma, Captain Zimmer stripped the Gürzen of its guns and scuttled the ship in the harbour. The war in East Africa would run on until the end of hostilities in Europe in 1918. In fact, Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck and his men hold the distinction of being the very last German army to surrender at the end of the First World War. An incredible story. Commander Spicer Simpson, DSO, served the remainder of the war back in London, working in naval intelligence, and was part of the naval delegation at the Versailles Peace Conference.
Oh.
He died in 1947, having never commanded any further Royal Navy vessels. HMS Mimi and HMS Tutu would see no further action in the war either. Mimi was scuttled in the early 1920s. So too was HMS Fifi. Having returned to service as a passenger vessel on the lake after the war, she was deemed unseaworthy and taken out of service in 1924. Interestingly, the German vessel whose presence had alarmed big game hunter John Lee and led to Simpson's Circus, the Gürzen, would be resurfaced after the war.
Really?
Renamed the MV Liemba, she became a civilian vessel, carrying passengers and cargo up and down the lake.
Wow.
In fact, amazingly, she is still doing that to this very day.
Wow.
A working naval vessel from the First World War, still plying Lake Tanganyika. Maybe she is the real African Queen. Coming soon, the story of the German East Africa campaign that I've just been talking about, so please subscribe so you don't miss that. And please also consider joining my supporters club. There's a link in the description below.
Please do.
Help me feed the YouTube algorithm with a like, hit the subscribe button, or comment. Until next time, thanks for your support. Keep well, and I'll see you again very soon.
Please go support Chris. It is so important. Get on the club mailing list, go over to his channel, like, subscribe, do the things to help him out. It's really important. His videos are great. This was a very interesting one. I did not know, even though I'd seen the movie, and like, let me tell you, this was a long time ago. I don't even remember pretty much most of it. So when I do watch it, some things may, jar my memory, but I don't know if that would be the case. Granted, it has nothing to do with the actual story. With some similarities, them attacking a German ship there, but so many crazy things. It's a really bizarre story, and it all centers around that dude, right? Simpson, just Spicer Simpson, Simpson's Circus, right? It's funny how he essentially had a desk job. They said, okay, we're going to put you back in charge. I mean, he did not have a very good track record up to that point. A lot of things negative. They put him behind a desk. They said, okay, we got a lake in Africa that needs a commander. And we're going to give you 2 little boats. And you can't name them cat and dog, but you can certainly trick us into naming it Meow and Woof, which is hilarious. Yeah, crazy dude. There's always that one British commander who's just different, right? And I'm sure it's the same in a lot of militaries around the world that have that very eccentric or quirky guy. But then after this, he was done. I mean, he clearly won, clearly was successful down there, but then they just kind of said, okay, you're done. You're done commanding. Now you're going to be an intelligence guy. So interesting. Yeah, great video. Hope you enjoyed that. Again, go support Chris at History Chap. Links will be below, as always. I hope everybody's happy, healthy, and safe. Thanks a lot for coming and hanging out with me on this couch. Love you guys. Thank you. We'll see you soon. All right, bye.
Mark from the States, Mark from the States, it's Mark.